Today we are discussing children's ear infections and hemorrhoids. You don't need to be afraid. You can handle this, and here's how you do it.
The Ask Dr. Mom Show.
Welcome to the Ask Dr. Mom Show, episode 7. Today we are talking about children's health, and our episode next week is going to be on pregnancy. So any questions that you might have on pregnancy, please submit them below. Over the years, as people have read some of the books I've written or attended my classes, the question quite often comes up, how were you ever brave enough to start taking care of some of these conditions on your own? So today I want to take just a minute and answer that question because it really didn't have anything to do with bravery. 30 plus years ago, when I was still in my conventional box, I had 10 young children at home. Because I had such a large family, I got pretty used to figuring out what was going on when they would get sick. And I had a really good family doctor that I had kind of built a rapport with. In fact, he used to tease me that all I needed him for was his signature, because I would do things like take a child into his office and say, Tanya has an ear infection, can I get some amoxicillin? Of course, he'd double check me, realize that I was right, and write out the prescription and send me on my way. So because I already had had years of experience raising these children, when I began to study herbal medicine, it wasn't hard to start switching out those antibiotics for something that was much easier and healthier. So one of the very first things that I ever had to deal with was an ear infection, which leads us into our first question.
Omi Avantas, I have a question about the future topic on children's health. My 2-year-old and 4-year-old get frequent inner ear infections due to non-drainage of mucus in the canal. Their doctor prescribes antibiotics. How were inner ear infections healed before the antibiotics era? Is there a natural, safer way to heal them without using 10 days of antibiotics? Also, my kids produce a lot of mucus. How can I cut down on this production?
Thank you so much for sending this question in, because it is a perfect introduction to moving into handling more and more things on our own. In my studies, I discovered that garlic oil has been used for centuries to help clear up ear infections. Mullein oil has been used to help break up the congestion that builds up behind the eardrum. So when I first started doing things at home, I would take some garlic oil, or oil of garlic is actually the more correct term to use. I would pull the oil up into a dropper like this, and then I would hold it underneath hot running water so that it would warm that oil up. Then I would test it on my wrist to make sure that it wasn't too hot, and then depending on the age and size of the child I was working with, I would put several drops of warm garlic oil into their ear. I would then follow that with, maybe 2 to 6 drops of warm mullein oil. So I've got the garlic oil to fight the infection. I have the mullein oil to break up the congestion behind the eardrum. We have now combined those oils into the kids' ear oil, so we don't have to use the 2 different oils anymore. Along with using the oil in their ear, and I would probably do that 3 to 4 times a day, I would also put them into a hot steamy shower or a hot steamy bath 2 or 3 times a day to let that steam start breaking up and helping to drain the respiratory system so that we can keep things moving. Orally, I would give them something like the kids' immunobug to boost the immune system. Now, the second half of your question is dealing with the mucus that builds up in the system. It is well known that dairy products can build up a lot of mucus in the body. So this would probably be one of the first things that I would look at as far as reducing the amount of mucus. There have been many parents who have dealt with chronic colds or chronic ear infections who have removed dairy from their children's diet and completely cleared up the problem just by doing something that simple. Now, on this same topic, let's move into question number 2.
Josie Barrientos says, "Hi, Dr. Mom. I enjoy your episodes. My husband freaked out when I switched to distilled water. I have a question about the health of my children. I have a 7-year-old and an 18-month-old. They get constant ear infections. What can I do to prevent them? I really hate giving them so much antibiotics. They both have to take allergy medicine every day too. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but my 7-year-old is partially vaccinated, and my 18-month-old is unvaccinated. Thank you so much. Have a great day." Oh, I forgot to mention, they both have a horrible cough. The doctor said it was due to allergies. Shouldn't the Zyrtec help with that? It hasn't by any means.
Josie, I hear you. My husband freaked out over a lot of the changes I made in our lives in the beginning too. However, now he is very grateful, so hang in there, he'll come around. Let's continue this discussion on ear infections. All of the things that I shared with Yvonne are where I would start. And just doing those simple things, using the ear oil, the immunobug, the hot water, the steam, just doing those simple things cleared up the majority of any ear infection that I ever had to deal with, and it would usually do it in 2 or 3 days, as opposed to the 10 days of antibiotics. However, every once in a while, you'll run into a nasty one that usually will involve swollen glands, usually up here in the throat area. Whenever I would run into an ear infection that had the swollen glands and maybe other things going on, I'd have to get a little more aggressive with it. So if I did the things that we talked about in the previous question and it was getting worse or it wasn't clearing up, then I would have to get a little more aggressive. And the way I did that was by making a decoction, which is just a fancy word for a strong tea that I'll explain in just a second. I would make a decoction using cut herbs. So I would take 3 parts mullein to 1 part lobelia to help bring down the swollen glands. And the way I would do this is, let's say I started with 2 gallons of water. So I would take my pot, put 2 gallons of water in it. Then I would add 3 cups, roughly, of cut mullein, 1 cup of cut lobelia. Put it into the water, and then I want to simmer it. I want to get a good steam going. I'm not going to boil it because that will kill the properties in my herbs, but I want to get a good steam going. I'm going to reduce that 2 gallons of liquid in half. So I'm going to take it from 2 gallons and simmer it down to 1 gallon. That is called a decoction, and it greatly increases the medicinal value of your herb. Once I have simmered this down, I am going to take a cotton diaper or a dish towel, soak it in my decoction, and then I'm going to wrap it around my child's neck, covering those swollen glands. This has always been extremely effective in helping to bring those glands down. Then I will take a little bit of the oil that we talked about before, put it on my fingers, and you have to be very careful when you do this because it's going to be tender. But I take that oil, get up behind the ear, and then gently massage down along the jawline using that oil. This would help me to drain the eustachian tube and get that mucus out that is behind the eardrum causing the problem. Adding in the decoction allowed me to take care of any type of ear infection that my children came in contact with. Now, let me throw in one final footnote. Occasionally, not very often, but occasionally, I would have an eardrum rupture. I could tell that it had ruptured because there would be blood and pus that would drain from the ear. Once that happens, I would no longer put anything directly into the ear. However, what I came to understand is, I have to admit, the first time this happened, I really panicked. And I ran to my doctor with it. But he explained to me that the eardrum is designed to rupture if it has too much pressure behind it. In fact, that's one of the reasons they will talk about putting tubes in the ear. It's designed to rupture. And so if the pressure builds and the eardrum ruptures, it was something that I no longer panicked about. I would just continue with the kids' immunobug orally. I would continue with the oil behind the ear and the massage on the eustachian tube and allow the eardrum to heal. Okay, let's move on to question number 3.
Daniela says, sorry, but talking about fiber, my 3-year-old eats plenty of it, has no constipation, and still developed hemorrhoids. I am so stressed. Any suggestions on how I can help him? Currently, I am using witch hazel and stuff like this to soothe it. I am interested in how to get rid of them, prevent them from reoccurring. Any thoughts?
Daniela, hemorrhoids are typically caused by too much straining. So if there is plenty of fiber in the diet, the next thing that I would personally look at is dehydration. Is my child getting enough water to drink? Because although there may be enough fiber to help things move along, there may not be enough moisture. And if the stool is too dry, then it's also going to cause a lot of straining. Once I got that balanced out, then the next thing that I would do to start healing the hemorrhoids is to use a warm tea made from the hemorrhoid sitz bath and literally just have them sit in this warm tea, which has herbs in it to help shrink the hemorrhoids. And then I would use the Replenish Bone and Tissue ointment to help heal them. The other thing I might look at on top of the water would be making sure that my child is getting enough of the right kind of fats in their diet, the omega-3s and 6s. So I might add a little bit of flax oil into a smoothie in the morning or into some juice to make sure that they're getting enough of the right type of oils. And this too will allow things to move much more smoothly to where they don't have to do any straining. All right, we are out of time for today. In our next episode, we are going to be discussing pregnancy. So any questions that you might have on pregnancy, please submit them, and I will share the experiences that I have had in dealing with your questions.